Historic Preservation Commission. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on an issue that is not on the agenda tonight? No? All right. And we will proceed with tonight's meeting. Let's begin with the roll call, find out who is here. Commissioner Ball? Are you here, Commissioner Ball?
I am here. Yep.
All right. And Commissioner Billsborough? Are you here, Commissioner Billsborough? No? All right. Commissioner Garrity?
Here.
Thanks. Commissioner Garrison?
So, Chair Buss, I just talked to Commissioner Garrison. He can't get in through his computer, but he's going to call in, see if he can get in through that.
All right. And Commissioner Gilbert? Commissioner Gilbert here? No? All right. Commissioner Larson, I believe I saw you there.
Yeah, I'm here working on my camera. I'll get it connected here in just a second.
Okay. I can see your name on there at least. Commissioner Montero?
Yes, I am here.
All right, thanks. And Commissioner Nucci, I know, is here because we spoke a moment ago.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. Let's move on to approval of the September 9th meeting minutes. Is there anyone with any corrections or additions to it?
I have no corrections to offer. I would move to accept minutes as they stand.
All right. Is there a second to that?
I second
All right.
Commissioner Montero.
All right. Thank you. I guess we'll go with the roll call. All in favor. Let's start with Commissioner Ball.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Billsborough, I believe, is still absent. Commissioner Garrity.
Aye.
All right. Is Commissioner Garrison on the phone yet?
Yes, I'm on the phone.
All right. Well, how do you weigh in on the meeting minutes? Are you for an approval or?
Yeah, approval.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Gilbert, I believe, is not here. Commissioner Larson.
I'm turning it on.
Aye.
Your camera just came on.
All right. Great.
Commissioner Montero.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Nucci.
Aye.
All right. So the meeting minutes for September 9th are approved. Let's move on to agenda item number 3, the Tempe Depot Preservation. We'll have a presentation. And do you want to tell us about that, John?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Chair Buss. So the commission will recall that there was, I believe at the last meeting, a presentation about the Tempe Depot. The depot is not listed in the Tempe Historic Property Register. It was never put forward by the property owner for listing. It was determined to be National Register eligible. The railroad, the owner at the time that eligibility determination was made, opted against listing in the National Register. There subsequently were additions. The Macayos Depot Cantina made. It does appear, based upon research, including aerial photos, other forms of documentation, walks through the property, etc., that the additions, although significant in size, are actually rather easily reversible. And when reversed, it appears that there would be a great deal of integrity. So it is likely that upon removal of the additions, we would have essentially the depot as it stood when the determination of eligibility was made in the early 1980s. However, because the property is not listed in the Tempe Historic Property Register, the HPC has no formal oversight over the property. That is, request to alter, demolish, anything that may come forward is not within the jurisdiction of the HPC. That said, Barry, the developer, Barry Shanahan, has been a terrific partner. He's been in discussions with us, really trying to understand the significance of the depot, the property, et cetera, and has crafted a proposal that was reviewed with the commission again last meeting, or perhaps 2 meetings ago, and will be kind of rehashed this evening. A proposal that, while allowing for redevelopment of the site, preserves the depot and ensures that other mitigation, to include archaeological investigations, occur on the property. So really, he's been a terrific partner. We're very pleased at the progress that has been made in this discussion thus far, and I suspect that the commission will be pleased to hear the presentation. With that, I know Alex wants to, I believe, introduce Barry, and I will say this is not an action item, although should at the end of the presentation the commission wish to make a recommendation relating to the project, because this will be going to the Development Review Commission and then the City Council. Should the commission wish to weigh in on the proposal to save the depot, I suspect that the applicant would appreciate that a great deal.
Yeah, thank you, John. Just real fast, I think you covered most of what I was going to say in my introduction, but staff is actively negotiating a development agreement with Red and Barry. And as John mentioned, one of the key provisions is that the depot remain on site. Where the developer is moving forward with entitlements and will be going to the DRC and then on to council sometime soon. So the commission's support would be greatly valued. And I think that this is a rare opportunity to work with a developer that's both diligent and caring, and Red and Barry fit that bill. So if we can get something done with these guys, I think we're a lot better off than, waiting to see what the future brings us. So now's the time for action.
All right, thanks. All right, are we ready for the presentation then?
Sure, Chairman Boss.
Yes.
For your record, Modular Laws, law firm Gamage and Burnham. I'm going to attempt to share my screen.
All right.
Hold tight. Okay. Oops. Can everybody see this?
I can see it.
Not yet.
It's working for me.
Okay.
I see it.
So I just want to, oh, not yet?
See it.
Okay. Huh. Oh, can you see?
I can see it, Manjula. This is, Laureen, you've.
See it now.
Okay. All right. Thank
Sorry.
you. That's okay. Thank you. Again, for the record, Modular Laws with Gamage and Burnham. I'm here on behalf of ENR Holdings and Red. We appreciate all of the time that you've taken and the feedback that this commission has given us. Before I start, I want to echo kind of a little bit of what Alex and John said. Barry's been working with Alex and John for a year, and Alex and John have been great and super helpful. And so, and Barry would echo the same thing. And we really appreciate the partnership with the city of Tempe and, both Alex and John and this commission. So just want to go briefly through the project, and we'll just could take some questions. I think you've seen some of it. Just quickly, I'm just going to give you a presentation that we gave to the neighborhood meeting. So it's a little expanded, and we have some renderings to kind of show you. We've showed the council. The applicant is ENR Holdings, which is a company affiliated with Red Development. And as you may know, as I mentioned, And some of you have seen Red is a wholly owned, they do a lot of large mixed use projects. They do office, hotel, multifamily. They have developed over 12 million square feet in 11 states, including obviously Arizona and some in Dallas, which I'm going to show you. I think a lot of you are familiar with the cityscape project they've developed in downtown Phoenix, which has across from the Suns Arena, kind of Arrogant Butcher, and in the winter it has the ice skating rink along Central. And they've also involved what's called Block 23, which is the building that has the Fry's in downtown, an office building above the Fry's, and then multifamily adjacent to the Fry's. So just right in downtown across from the Suns Arena, very highly integrated Class A office and multifamily hotel. And then this is a project that they've done in Dallas, which is at the Union Uptown Dallas, which is anchored by a Tom Thumb grocery store. And then we wanted to show you a different project. They're involved a lot, but you may have heard of the project they're doing at 44th and Camelback, which will be Sam Fox Hotel, and then the Mercury and Sons practice arena and office there, just to give you a sense of some other projects they're doing around town. I think you're well aware Smith Group is our architects, and they're a highly respected, qualified firm that has done a lot of things throughout the valley and throughout Arizona, and certainly done a lot of historic preservation. So we're happy to have them with us. This is Depot site. I know you're all familiar with it. As we've talked to the community and the council, one of the things, that you don't really see, which I'll show you when you look on, is I think we talked about, it's a hard, and I know, some of you know this very well, it's a hard shape. And you have two triangles now bisected by light rail. And then as I think you can see a little bit more here, but the depot is actually on the western edge and in the middle of the site. So as we work through trying to figure out how to preserve the depot in its location, as I'll talk about in a second, also then preserve it for future use, it became, as you know, a little complicated, just how you do that structurally and try to make everything work, given all, both the light rail and all the things going on in the project. So just wanted to show you where we are. We get a couple of pictures of the depot that I know all of you are familiar with. Just wanted to show you northeast from Ash, and then Third Street and Ash. And then here's a better picture. It's a picture of the 1924 train depot. You can see here, as I'm pointing with my cursor, what this yellow block is in terms of how the depot sits on the parcel, the far western edge, and how, you will see as we kind of had to develop and construct around it. It's certainly a feat of engineering that I only kind of marginally understand, but I think you'll see. We'll try to show you how it worked. In terms of briefly the project, we just wanted to talk about, when talking about a new commercial development consisting of the preservation and the rehabilitation of the train depot, which we all know was built in 1924. We have a 17-story office tower, which is about 319,000 square feet of office, an 18-story hotel tower, which we do have a hotel brand and have 280 guest rooms and 9,400 square feet of hotel meeting space. So it does have a sizable conference center. Along that, we have 23,900 square feet of retail restaurant, 4,600 outdoor dining and patio, which we'll talk about, 22,000 square feet of public gathering space, which is this plaza, and I'll show you more, which will really help us activate the area in front of the depot and kind of bring and pull people into the site. We have a shared amenity deck with a hotel, and then 7 Just briefly to go through planning requests, in terms of Alex and John mentioned, we're going to the DRC. What we're asking for at the DRC is a PAD overlay, adult development plan review, which is site, landscaping, building elevations, use permit for tandem parking, and then we have to get an administrative finding that the project generally conforms to the TOD. We had some TOD issues because of, and I can just show you here, this works out well. In terms of kind of the light rail, both light rail and the streetcar, as you know, there's a lot of construction going in on Ash, and there's some conflicts that had to do with kind of the utilities that are in Ash as it relates to the streetcar stop, some of the way the curb cuts work, and some other things that we had to go talk to Ryan and get some, just to conform that we conform to the TOD, but cannot meet the intent of the TOD. So this is a very high level kind of plan that shows you how the site is laid out, which I'll talk a little bit more about. But basically, the office here on the north side with retail, you have a drop off here, kind of you have a pull in here, and then what is most important, I think, for you, and then the hotel here with retail. I'll show you the streetcar stop here. But this is the large plaza area we're going to activate, and so that you would kind of be drawn into the site, into the train depot. Our intent is similar to kind of in 100 Mill, as John and Alex, as they mentioned, have been through the depot. You see a little bit better here, and we're going to kind of as we kind of start to unpack, I guess, or take the kind of Mikhail's portion off the depot. The intent is to make the depot a hopefully a restaurant site, certainly activate or retail. As Alex says, we're going to see what the depot wants to be. Very similar to kind of as we work through the Hayden House. It's a similar type of project. You have an office and a hotel there, an office and a hotel here, but working through and what does this depot want to be in terms of kind of the activation in the restaurant. We hope it's a restaurant. And then we have worked with the city planning or transportation department, sorry, in terms of, commuter rail comes in the future. There's an opportunity, we'll have some space to use the depot for commuter rail. So go back to being active depot with the train coming in. Then of course, we're working with Valley Metro on the light rail tracks, then the streetcar here. So show you some pictures of what we're talking about. This is overall, kind of the overall look. This is the active portion of Ash, and you can see we have a large restaurant, indoor, outdoor dining, kind of some rooftop experience here from the office building. I think for all of us here, what we've tried to do is show, if you consider, when I talk to people, consider the way Centerpoint works in that you're kind of pulled into the site. And originally, I don't know, whatever it's been, but 30 years ago, the jackrabbits were something that kind of pulled you into the site, and you have an open plaza area in front of the movie theater that served as a large gathering space over the years in Tempe. And that's something we envision with this. We've talked to kind of the DTA and the council and Alex and John, just about different activities we could do here. We could see kind of the Christmas lighting happening here, or some other holiday events, certainly when we can all gather again, or other different events. Certainly they can also involve the depot. We've talked to some members of DRC who certainly suggested other things related to train museums and other things we could do related to the train, but it's kind of our structure with the depot. But I wanted to show you this, and Barry may, I think Barry can talk after.
I'm available.
Can you talk, Barry?
Yeah, I'm available.
Okay, I'm going to turn over to Barry a little bit, talk about one of the things we heard from the commission, and certainly also from Alex, is try to give a breathing room to the depot as we could over it structurally. So you can see it here a little more to make sure from the west that you can see the depot and that you didn't have a parking garage right on kind of level on its roof. And I'm going to have Barry talk a little bit about the engineering that involves.
Sure. Yeah. So both in our time last with you all and also with planning staff, we heard the request to find ways to let the depot breathe a little bit and have a little better visibility and presence. And to that end, we relocated a building that was originally planned north of the depot at ground level forward to the street and expanded the restaurant opportunity up there, which gave us more plaza area immediately around the depot. And then at your request at the last meeting, we looked at that level 2 of the project, which is the first level of parking that was immediately over the depot, and investigated with our structural engineer and architectural team what we might be able to do there. So what we've done, and I won't use the correct structural terms because I'm not a structural engineer, what we've done basically is structurally, we have been able to fuse the level 2 and the level 3 floor plate together at what was the back edge of that run of parking stalls, where it kind of becomes kind of a uniform structural mass, which has allowed us, to remove the level of structure immediately above the depot, But in addition, you can see there are 3 column lines that we have been able to eliminate that they came down in front of the depot. We'll need the other 2 on the south end, but we're able to do that in a way where the structure is preserved. So we have a rendering coming of this that'll show it a little bit more animated. Hoped to have that for today, but it's just not ready yet. But on the left-hand side of this, which would be the north side of the depot, this structure is presented as a solid mass. In fact, it's actually kind of a, lack of a better term, kind of a porte-cochere type of a facility with a couple of columns and then a big open area. We were able to walk that with John and Alex the other day as we were inspecting the depot. And we will be able in that immediate area to create kind of a gateway, if you will, that to the extent commuter rail returns and is activated for that purpose, you'll actually be able to come off of the train onto the landing platform and through that gated area into the plaza and then on through a pedestrian linkage to Ash or to Mill, 3rd Street, where you'll have not only access to light rail on 3rd, but the streetcar system immediately in front of the hotel lobby. And also there's actually a bus transit stop immediately in front of the office lobby. So this has the potentially to kind of be the absolute, I think, most transit-centric project, certainly in the state of Arizona, depending upon how things develop in the future. But we have tried to keep the structure on the west side of this building very simple. That plays in our mind to kind of an industrial theme of a railroad location. But we've also done that to not detract or distract from the depot, so that when we're able to show you the rendering, what you'll see is that terrific old brick building and the windows and the doorways and the things that we'll be able to kind of reestablish will be very visible and impactful from anybody like standing at a lot of Culinary Dropout and looking in this direction. So we really neat.
And Barry, if I might jump in here, just to remind the commission of some things that might not get mentioned, and I think this rendering illustrates them very well. You know, Barry's having to deal with Valley Metro to build over the tracks. There's some complications associated with the guideway and FTAs involved. We have the Bureau of Reclamation and the Water Users Association because there's a line to the south of the depot that Barry has to deal with. And, you know, oftentimes I haven't been doing this for a long time, but long enough, you'll deal with some folks that say they want to do something and then you talk to them and you realize that they're more concentrated on a pro forma than they are anything else. And that's not to say Barry doesn't pay attention to his pro formas, but he's demonstrated a technical aptitude that I think, I'll speak for John here a little bit as well, gives us a lot of faith in his ability to carry this out and to really start exploring the depot when we get into the demolition phase and trust that the outcome is going to be what the commission and the city wants.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll also say that's a two-way street. I mean, the city of Tempe is really fortunate to have staff as dedicated and as passionate about what they do as John and Alex. So it's been a really great exploration.
Barry, this is Commissioner Buss. When would this rendering be available? This elevation drawing I'm looking at, it seems like looks like the train depot is kind of consumed by the building. Or am I seeing it wrong with the rendering?
Yeah, I think the rendering will help with the differentiation of the building due to color and those types of things. Yes.
Okay, yeah, because from my perspective, looking at the elevation, and I do have an architecture background, so I'm pretty good at reading these. It does look like the depot's been, like I said, kind of consumed by the one edge of the building. I'm just wondering how that differed from what you had shown at the previous meeting.
The difference is in the elimination. In the previous meeting, what you would have seen is this first level of parking crash wall here. You would have seen that continue across the top of the building to connect with the other side, and you would have seen those 3 columns come down through the face across the face of the building. So the location of the depot in the middle of this piece of real estate, as opposed to the edge of it, like say Hayden House, location in the middle of the project, we do have to construct around it, but we have eliminated that horizontal mass immediately over the top of the facility and eliminated those structural columns.
And Modula, can you go back to the rendering of the plaza looking to the west? I think that may or may not be the more significant view there, because I don't think there's not much that can be done about the western massing of the building other than removing the floor that Barry did. But when you're on that plaza level and you can see daylight between that building and the depot, and that's going to be your main pedestrian access. Frankly, that western facade is going to be, you want to talk about swallowed up. There's already an entitled, 5-story office building on that western facade. So really, but by the time that building and that garage gets built, there's not going to be a view shed from the west. It's going to be from the east to the west. And that's where you really see some amount of open space in that plaza, letting the building breathe. And just a reminder, the city's going to have a pedestrian ingress egress easement for that plaza. So it's not like that can ever get taken away. That'd be a perpetual easement. So the public will have access to the depot.
This is Commissioner Ball. I'm the one who had kind of made the comment, I think it was 2 months ago maybe, when we saw your team about the second floor of the parking garage in its immediacy to the height of the roof of the old structure for the depot. Having had some experience in working on projects of this scale and old structures as well, historic structures as well, it's not lost on me how big an ask this was to be able to open up another floor deck in terms of the parking loss and in terms of the structural realities. So I appreciate the big effort that your team's made in the ensuing month or so here since we last had a chance to speak with you. I think that this site in particular, it's the only site I can think of in the metro area where light rail, streetcar, city bus, walkable downtown urban core, and the potential someday, please, regional train can all happen together. This site is calling for something big, even though with our purview here today to talk about historic preservation, despite the fact that this building is not listed, it really is just screaming for a large and diverse program. And the only parallel I can think of off the top of my head in a much larger scale than what's being proposed here is the train station in Kyoto, which is just a massive structure over many city blocks, but it knits together many different functions: hotel, retail, lifestyle, transportation, and it does it in a really great way. And the key to that is creating a good urban space at the base of it that's accessible, that's easily navigated from one transportation mode to the other. So I really appreciate on the scale and conception of the project, the technical challenges that you're having to deal with in bridging over the light rail and a number of other infrastructure elements on this site. And the sensitivity you've shown us so far. I am anxious to see the rendering to see how you wish to treat that facade. The west facade of the railroad station in particular is the better facade of that historic structure. Looking back at older photos, even back in the 70s, before Macayos was built, the town side of the train station was not necessarily a thing of beauty. It was all about arriving on the train, hopping off the train, and that's where your nice facade really was. The side that faces in toward this public plaza is a little more mundane, and that'll probably reveal itself as you peel back the onion with the Macayos project that's attached to it. So I think it will be really interesting to see how you can treat that facade and honor and respect the character of the nicer facade, even though we don't see it very well as the city builds up. I think you've got some opportunities to play with lighting mounted from structure in order to really highlight how nice that facade is. And it will be seen from properties across the way and hopefully someday from regional transit. So appreciate the effort, Barry, and you and your team have put a lot of effort into this transition from the first presentation we saw.
Yep, thank you. Those are great points, and we'll be thoughtful in our approach with all of that.
Barry, this is Chris with the Smith Group. We do have the, I guess, in progress rendering, which is a step above what's shown. It's not the final. Obviously, we're polishing up the lights, but it is an advancement of what's been shown on the west side. It's your call if you want to show it or if you want to save it and we'll show the final later.
I think if it had the revisions that we talked about this morning, I would be okay with it. But absent that, I'd prefer to hold. And
okay.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Ball, I mean, I think, Marty, with your permission, I think I have this. I do want to show you just a little bit of I have a lot of stuff. I think I had the west side. So just to give you a sense of the future of what Alex referred to, you'll have the train depot. The Farmer Arts District, as you know, is right on the other side, kind of where Culinary is in that parking lot. So this is not to say I agree with Commissioner Ball in terms of the facade of the western side, but this shows you a little bit of what will be as the town builds up. There's a parking garage actually here, which is adjacent facing our parking garage. And then to the south of this is a office building. So just to give you a sense of what is the future on our western side. If that helps her. Just to give you a sense of what Alex was talking about. But I'll go back to this.
Okay, so are we saying we'd rather hold off on the rendering for now?
yeah, there were a number of things about the rendering that weren't correct relative to the building. And I don't want to put something up that just, the artist working on the rendering, we were fortunate enough with John's help to actually get 3 of the 5 pages of plans from the original architectural plan set. And when they put it on the site, they just, they weren't here, they hadn't seen the site, they put it on the building backwards. So we're in the process of fixing that right now. We can forward that. I think it'll be available in a day or so. We'll be happy to forward that.
Yeah, we can
do that through John.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I'd like to, this is Commissioner Ball once again. I'd like to offer also, I've got, I think, 7 or 8 sheets of the original Fitzhugh and Byron drawings from the 20s in electronic form. I'd be happy to send those over to you in case there's anything missing that your team wants to add in. Those are available. There's a collection at the State Historic Preservation Archive that has a number of the best of the Lesher Mahoney buildings and also the Fitzhugh and Byron buildings that kind of predate Lesher. So it's a good little treasure trove if you run into a historic structure in future.
Thank you very much. John had shared 3 of those plans, 3 of those sheets with us, and we'd love to have all of it. Yeah, I mean, it's a very delicate demolition of a restaurant around it, so the more that we can understand about the underlying structure, the better.
Absolutely. I'll send those along to Manjula.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Were there any other commissioners that had anything to say on it? No other questions or comments?
No, appreciate the presentation.
Yes. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We
Chairman?
appreciate. Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
as
please.
Commissioner Nucci,
Yes.
do we want to share a recommendation with Manjula and her team?
Yeah, how's everyone feeling about that? Are we at that point, or do we want to see the rendering?
May I ask Manjula and Barry, in terms of the processes that you're entering into with Alex and the team at the city, is it critical for you to have that on paper this month, or can we wait to see that final rendering? We'd love to see it.
Yeah, no, of course. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Ball. In terms of, we would obviously love your support. To give you a sense of our timing, we are going to the DRC at the end of the month. So October 27th, I believe, but the Tuesday, you can correct me. And then we're going to council in November and early December. So what I've told expressed to the DRC is that we've shown the Historic Preservation Commission. If you would like to see the rendering, we'll send it to John. Certainly, I don't know how the commission works, but either a letter before the DRC, but certainly a letter before council, which I think will give you time to have the next meeting, would be very helpful to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we certainly, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Commissioner, I think that, or Chair, I should say, I think maybe a possible way to go about it is have maybe a motion to support the project, whatever form that takes, conditioned upon the receipt of that rendering, and then the formal support letter or whatever form that would take would come later. You wouldn't have to send that now, pending review of the rendering. But
I'm sorry to interrupt, Alex. Chair Bus.
Yeah.
My audio cut out, so I couldn't hear for a couple of minutes there. I see that Commissioner Nucci in chat put forward a motion. I don't know if that's what was being discussed, but I just got audio again, so I wanted to mention that in case it wasn't noticed.
I did notice you cut out for a minute on your mic there, John. Yes, we were discussing whether to make a recommendation now or wait for a rendering, and Alex was suggesting to perhaps tentative recommendation while we await the actual rendering to get a better idea of what it would look like.
I would actually offer a motion to support the project contingent upon delivery of the rendering of the west facade with a letter of support to follow later.
This is Greg. I would support that motion from Vice Chair Ball over the text that Joe Nucci provided. I would really like to see the rendering of the west facade.
Mm-hmm.
In concept, I support this. I would again second Commissioner the Vice Chair Ball's motion because I really want to see that western rendering.
I think I'm in agreement with you, Commissioner Larson. Yes. All right. So are we pursuing Vice Chair Ball's suggestion here?
I think we have a motion and a second.
All right. Sounds like we do. All right, let me run through our list here. Commissioner Ball,
Aye.
thank you. Commissioner Garrity,
I believe I'd have to recuse myself since I work for one of the contractors working on this project
all right.
under red.
Commissioner Garrison, Commissioner Garrison,
Aye.
all right, thank you. We have now Commissioner Larson,
Aye.
thanks. Forgot if we have Commissioner Montero present. No. And-
Chair Buss, Commissioner Montero was on. She was having difficulty with the video connection, so she was going to attempt to call in.
And Commissioner Nucci,
Aye.
all right.
Support.
Say aye for myself as well.
Great.
Thank you all for your support. We really appreciate all the feedback and time you've taken with this project. And we look forward to seeing you all soon again. Have a good day.
Thank you all very much.
All right, thanks, Barry, and thanks, Angela.
Thank you, guys. All right. See you soon.
Okay.
Well, let's move on to item number 4, approval of the 2020 HPC annual report.
Chair Buss, thank you. The draft annual report was included in the packet. This is something that began, I want to say 3, perhaps 4 years ago now. The City Council wanted a mechanism to be able to keep updated on the various boards and commissions, what their goals are, what progress is being made, what assistance is needed, etc. So this is a recap of the past year's activity. We have some highlights in there to.
All right. I glanced over at myself. Anyone have thoughts on it?
I've been through the statement, the draft statement briefly, and I have nothing that I feel we should add at this point. John, are you back?
Sorry, I don't know what exactly is happening here, but yeah, I seem to keep cutting out. So anyway, I was just recapping what we have in the report, some of the highlights, the Hayden House, the HP plan that is being prepared along with the survey and inventory, and the cultural resources inventory and blanket monitoring, discovery and treatment plan, along with some goals. So we tried to make it as succinct as possible. There is a fair amount of information, of course.
Yeah.
How far along are we on the survey inventory? I mean, any ETA on it all?
I don't have an ETA. I can tell you that with both the survey and inventory and the cultural resources inventory and blanket plan, research is really critical for both of those. There have been a number of archives that have just not been accessible. That has really altered our schedule. Also, public meetings, of course, have been very difficult to schedule. So we're now looking at holding virtual meetings as opposed to in person. We had hoped initially that things would change within the course of a few months, as I think everyone had hoped initially, and unfortunately that did not come to pass. So there are some real limitations in terms of the research and the public meeting components. The survey and inventory work for the properties is nearing completion. The plan, because of the involvement, both plans, because of the involvement of the public that is desired, and the ethnographic work, is interviewing members of various tribes, that has all been delayed as a result of COVID. So we are behind schedule on both at this point.
And I would offer to the commission that, you know, John and I have been having some serious discussions on whether to proceed with virtual public meetings. You know, our preference is to have them in person. But if you did go virtual without the research, I don't know how productive those meetings would be, because a lot of it would be based off of the research, not just the inventory itself. So the presentations might be lacking, but I think we can develop a more formal update for the commission and return in November.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks. Any comments from other commissioners on the report? It looked like
this is
complete to me. Go on.
this Commissioner Larson. I'm looking at the attendance record, and I'm not sure I understand what it's reporting. So it looks like most everyone has attended 3. Maybe I'm just not understanding what's actually being reported.
But there were only 3. There were only 3 meetings, Commissioner. I was pretty shocked when I read it myself, and I confirmed with Brittany. We've only met 3 times.
3 times for this calendar year, right?
Yes.
Right, and that does roughly sound accurate. I know there's been a lack of action items, but since there's been a lack of action items, I guess it's been felt like with COVID that maybe we should not meet as often unless there was something more really pressing.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Larson?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
this is Joe Nucci.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate John and Alex on a really nice report. I think that it makes it clear to mayor and council how many different projects are going on here and how much is being accomplished and how much got done in the last difficult 10 months or so.
Mhm.
But I also wanted to look ahead. So first, congratulations. I'm really pleased with that report. It is quite succinct, but it's dense in its content. And I'd like to look ahead and try and grasp the opportunities that may become available to the commission when the plan gets going, and or even now with this report to get preservation in front of council and put a face with it, and let council realize that in fact the preservation is an integral part of their priorities, their so-called council priorities. I think this report would be a bridge to other boards and commissions and to the council to bring that preservation message forward. That's all I've got.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Nucci. Any other comments on the report? No?
Yeah.
Would anyone like to make a motion for approval of the report?
I would move to accept the report as submitted for the 2020 annual report to council.
All right. Thanks, Commissioner Ball.
Is
And,
Commissioner Larson, I would second the motion.
all right. Thank you, Commissioner Larson. And let's go through our roll call. Commissioner Ball.
Aye.
All right. Commissioner Garrity.
Aye.
Thanks. Commissioner Garrison.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Larson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Nucci.
Aye.
And I will be an aye as well.
And Chair Buss, Commissioner Montero emailed. She's signed in 4 times, but it seems has been disconnected. I don't think she's on the phone either, but just for the record, she is having connection issues.
All right. Sorry to hear that, but all right. So we will move on to item number 5, Tempe Butte graffiti mitigation. What do you have for us, John?
Oh, thank you, Chair Buss. Yes, as the commission will recall, there was graffiti painted at the top of Tempe Butte, unfortunately not just the top, elsewhere, and in Papago Park. The city contracted with Logan Simpson to remediate this graffiti using the method that was developed by the City of Phoenix archaeologist Lorraine Montero, that is using elephant snot. It is a product that can be applied as a very applied very sensitively. Is not caustic. It doesn't damage the boulders, doesn't damage petroglyphs, etc. It can be washed off with water and is actually quite effective. Logan Simpson sent a sizable crew to the top of the Butte and to Papago Park. I want to say it was approximately 2 weeks ago. Had a great deal of success in removing graffiti. There was one area that is still being looked at. It was some rather daring individual went out on a literal ledge to apply graffiti. So that stands. There are unfortunately a couple of areas that were not identified to the Logan Simpson crew, so we're not in the scope, but the remediation was successful. Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community sent out their media team to film it. The plan is for them to put together a PSA of sorts, discussing the Butte and other landforms and their significance and the harm that comes as a result of graffiti and other acts of vandalism. The city Channel 11 crew was also out. It's my understanding that the city also hopes to produce something along those lines. The Arizona Republic sent out a photographer, and then Paulina Pineda interviewed myself and others, to include Shane Anton from Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, about the graffiti and the remediation. So overall, it was a very positive thing. Unfortunately, within days of the remediation being completed, there was, there are now several new pieces of graffiti that have been applied. So it seems to be an ongoing issue, and one that we are giving some thought to in terms of how to address. It seems that in addition to having a remediation protocol, there is a need for discussion of deterrent and enforcement.
All right, thanks, John. Sorry to hear someone chooses to do all this damage. I hope they
Yes, unfortunately, and presumably more than one individual, based upon the number of tags or pieces, I hesitate to call them art, areas that have been defaced, and there are some other challenges. Apparently Logan Simpson staff encountered an individual who was living in a tent atop the Butte, and they went up to assess the graffiti. So there are some challenges that require some consideration and action here.
Yep.
All right. Anyone have any questions?
This is Commissioner Garrity. I talk a little bit more about the graffiti that's in the hard to reach area, the area near the ledge. I was going to maybe try to crowdsource with you all. We're trying to figure out ways of how to do that safely. Our administration in the company at Logan Simpson, doesn't want anyone to put themselves at risk. And the people we have who are sort of, natural climbers said it would be kind of tough to go there with all the equipment you need to, the elephant snot and the water and all the scrubbing materials you need. Apparently it's pretty challenging. So we're trying to find some kind of professional service, but we're not, this is sort of new to us. So if anyone here has suggestions or recommendations, please let me know, or talk to John or me. I'm open to whatever would work, and we're willing to expedite and try to figure this out. So just wanted to crowdsource that a little bit.
Is there any power on top of the Butte anymore, or has all electricity been removed completely?
Commissioner Larson, there is power atop the butte. In fact, there's a very healthy power supply up there.
Yeah, I'll jump in, John. That there used to be power running all the way to the communication towers. Those conduits have been capped, and then lower down on the butte, there was always a power box, and our engineers, as John mentioned, were told to leave power there, and they made it a 60 amp twist lock circuit. So there's plenty of power up there. It's just getting it from 60 amp to something usable for a non-industrial purpose. That would be the issue. But it's a little bit above, what do you say, a little bit above the A, John, and below the most prominent part of the butte?
Yeah, I'd say that's correct in terms of location. And as I understand it from the Logan Simpson staff who were up there, and from conversations with Commissioner Garrity, getting the water that is required to the top is also a challenge, and that challenge is exacerbated by the fact that this last bit of graffiti, or at least the last from the first round, is out again on a literal ledge.
Is the positioning of the graffiti such that a spider crane with outriggers would be of any assistance? Put a guy on a bucket on the end of one. We've used them in tricky situations previously, but I'm not sure about the slope we're talking about there.
And Commissioner or Vice Chair Ball, that is a good question. I'm not all that familiar with a spider crane. Is it something that would be able to traverse the trail? I mean, is it capable of getting near the top?
They're pretty portable. I'm just not sure how high up above the terrain we're talking about here. I guess I'd have to hike on up there and see it. We've used them on the interior of buildings. They don't have an extreme reach, but you might be able to, if vertical height above the existing terrain is the problem, you might be able to do something with that, since you don't have access for, say, a cherry picker or something along those lines.
Sure, and that's certainly worth looking at. The area that is rather precarious is almost at the top. It is kind of to the northwest of the peak, just below the top, several feet below. So there's no trail that heads right to that area. It is out there. It is a challenge, but you know, I'm more than willing to look at all options.
Okay. As for water, also, low tech is good. Donkeys, you know, to get enough water up there to do the job once you can get to it. Not a bad idea. They used them for thousands of years on the Amalfi Coast, which is pretty vertical. So, friendly farmer with a donkey would be a good idea for that.
I hope deep buckets work well.
Yeah. Well, you know, we have mail delivered in the Grand Canyon still via mule. So, yeah.
Would linked sections of fire hose? I don't know if you can get close enough that the spray of a fire hose would reach it, if you could get the fire hose that close to it. I know a fire hose can kick water pretty far.
Yeah, so Chair Buss, we had talked about that, looking at where the nearest spigot might be available. I suspect that there may well be a spigot in the area of the water tanks. That's something worth looking into. Of course, we'd have to find a rather lengthy hose or set of hoses, it could well be that that at least facilitates getting water to a certain point that could then be carried by hand or in a backpack sprayer.
What's the length of time between applying the removal material and having to wash it away? Can it be there for hours or even a day or two? I guess I'm hinting at the idea of applying the elephant snot and then timing its application with an approaching storm that has a very high degree of certainty that it will occur.
Right, but it doesn't rain.
Well, that's pretty far-fetched with the non-existent rain of the past year.
Yeah. It's never going to rain again.
I was thinking from an enforcement standpoint, and the nature of my question about electricity is, I mean, with 60 amps, you'd have to reduce it down. But is there some way to have some sort of motion activated light source or video capturing to try to catch someone who's doing this? Or, you know, motion activated light would also be a deterrent. I know we've gone through a lot of effort to try to remove facilities on top of the butte because they're because of the cultural sensitivity component of this. But is there some other way to deter this? I mean, we really don't want to be cleaning it up. How can we try to stop it in the first place? I'm not sure if having electricity close like that and being able to reduce it down and connect it to some facility like that would be worth looking at. In terms of brainstorming, it's something to think about, if nothing else.
Commissioner Larson, thank you. That is absolutely worth looking into. It's a discussion that we've started to have. We're looking at potential for motion activated lighting, thermal cameras, whatever deterrents are available, and also looking at the enforcement, what the disincentive is should someone be caught, which at the moment is not occurring. If in an ideal world, I suppose we would work out a protocol with the 4 Southern tribes addressing how this would be deterred, how the penalties would be enforced, and what the protocol is for documenting and remediating graffiti so that it expedites the process and puts deterrence in place and formalizes it via an intergovernmental agreement of sorts. And there, of course, would be some funding required in association with that for cameras or other forms of deterrent. But this is something that we need to get a hold on. And as Commissioner Larson mentioned, we cannot just continually remediate this. Unfortunately, it seems people are now using paints to include automotive paints that are far more difficult to remove. So this certainly has a significant and lasting impact on the Butte and in Papago Park. And elephant snot is a fantastic product, but they're based upon the age of the paint, how many layers, the pigments, the type of paint, etc. It cannot remove 100% of the paint 100% of the time. So every time one of these incidents occurs, there is damage that, well, at least in the sense of our lifetimes, is permanent.
Yeah.
I would think it would also be wise if we could find a camera system to also put up signs on the trails leading up, indicating that there is enforcement, and just maybe even admit you may be walking.
Yeah.
Deterred, even like a little sign on a front yard of a house that says there's an alarm system quite often deters break-ins. So.
Yeah, that's true. And something that says we're watching you, even though you can't see the cameras. You don't know what they are. We're recording you, and I don't know how much for the delinquents it would tag the Butte like that. I'm not sure how much of a deterrent factor that would be, but it's worth considering for sure. Anything to stop it.
Yeah. I like the idea of a thermal motion capture camera, similar to what biologists might use, trying to capture video of a cougar at night or some such. Something like that is likely to be portable, battery operated, though you wouldn't want them to run away with our camera either. But that seems like a good starting point, and certainly some trail signs, even if there are not cameras there yet. That's easy.
And Vice Chair Ball and Chair Buss, absolutely, yes. And the signage, and Commissioner Larson as well, the signage is something that we want to pursue. This is, again, something that is quite serious and needs to be addressed promptly and properly. So we will keep the commission updated on this. We've had some informal conversations. Well, we consulted with Salt River and Gila River, but we're also having some informal follow-up conversations about what the next steps may be. And all parties are in agreement that there is certainly work to be done.
Have you talked to the Tempe Police Department at all?
So Craig Hayden, Commissioner Larson, Craig Hayden with Parks has identified 2 officers that are assigned to Parks. As I understand it, that doesn't mean that they necessarily actively patrol parks, but rather if there's a crime or incident that occurs in a park, they're the ones who, I suppose, handle it, whether it be paperwork or they're dispatched there. As I understand it, Craig Hayden has discussed this issue with the Tempe Police, and one of the real challenges right now is being able to identify when this is occurring and actually enforce the ordinance that prohibits it. Unfortunately, this seems to occur in the dead of night, and without cameras, without lights, without other resources up there, it seems next to impossible, short of just stationing someone there 24 hours a day. At the moment, it is very difficult to actually apprehend anyone in the act.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be curious to see what additional concepts are put forward. I don't know if drones can be programmed to do a regular flyby, especially in that airspace. But that might be another thing to consider. Haven't flown a drone, so I'm not sure how touchy they are, or whether or not they could be automated to do a regular patrol just to be heard at night as well.
Well, Vice Chair Ball, that's all ideas are on the table. I think that's an intriguing suggestion. I know that Fox 10 has deployed a drone at the Butte. They've deployed a drone at the flour mill. So, the airspace issue, there is a way to do it. In terms of automation, there are folks who are much smarter than I am as relates to technology. I suspect someone could figure that out. I see Commissioner Montero was able to sign in again. Commissioner Montero, we're talking about the graffiti remediation on the Butte. We let them know that thanks to the protocol developed by City of Phoenix, we were able to address the graffiti on the Butte and in Papago Park. Unfortunately, shortly after it was addressed, it was applied once again in several areas.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I'm sorry I missed a lot of this because of my internet connection. But I did want to ask if you were familiar with Rob Vakis from BLM, and if not, he does these investigations on archaeology crimes. And he reached out to us a while ago about possibly installing game cameras because things that are happening in South Mountain, might connect with some of the things he's investigating. So I wonder if that's, something that, I'd be happy to ask, to put you in touch with him if that might be something that you could check out.
Well, Commissioner Martin, that'd be much appreciated. As I shared with the commission, everything at the moment is on the table, and certainly anyone coming forward with ideas or resources, we'd like to talk with them and figure out how exactly we can go about managing this in a different manner in the future.
Okay.
Hey, John, another thought. The Tempe Police Courts building is nearby. I don't know how far a camera can see, but that is a city building, so you wouldn't need anyone's permission to put 2 or 3 cameras on the rooftop of that building aimed at the Tempe Butte. The only issue is maybe this thing could be automated to where whenever the camera senses motion on the mountain, someone in the police department starts watching the camera. I know, though, you've got hikers there all the time. So, well, actually, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Maybe starting at sunset during the night have, I don't know if the cameras can see that at night, though. That's not a good question. Maybe a thermal thing. Maybe that's it. It can see thermally. I don't know if it's that far away, and then have police check into it if they detect someone there after dark.
Chair Buss, that's absolutely an option. I know there are cameras on the top of the police courts building, 1 or more looking toward the Butte. I don't know their capability, their range. I certainly don't know what their capabilities in darkness are. In theory, the park does close. That said, there are, it seems, permanent residents on the north side of the park, so there is, it seems, activity 24 hours a day there. But again, all options are on the table. Everything is absolutely worth looking at.
All right. Very engaging and lively conversation.
Perhaps we form a HPC posse.
A lot of minds to figure this one out, and I hope we succeed and soon.
Yes.
We move on to item 6.
You cut out there, Chair Buss, just a little
Oh,
bit.
I'm sorry. I was asking, could we move on to item 6, Hayden House, see what John can tell us about that?
Absolutely, Chair Buss. Brittany, how do I go about sharing my screen?
I just gave you the ability to be the presenter.
Okay.
So now at the bottom, you should be able to click the share content where your mute and start video is,
I see. Yep. Okay.
and then you can share it.
Fantastic. Let me. Okay. Does everyone see that? The Charles T. Hayden House rehabilitation?
Yep.
Yes.
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 Fantastic. So last month I gave the overview of the project completion. I was hoping that we would have the photographs from the professional photographer available for this meeting. It seems there's a lot of processing and things, and apparently this gentleman is rather busy and travels to various jobs. So those photos are not yet available, but I did want to share an overview for those of you who perhaps have not been on the commission for the entirety of this very lengthy project, and then some photos depicting what has been done there. So The Hayden House, as I suspect everyone on the commission knows, the oldest portions of the building, starting from the room at the northeast corner, the room that Senator Carl Hayden was born in 1877, the oldest portions date to 1873. The Mill Avenue wing is an 1870s wing. The Rio Salado wing is a largely 1880s wing. So here we have a very early photo when the adobe block was exposed. Here's a photo of Charles Hayden himself there to the right of the photograph with the white beard and some employees standing outside of the building. The building did change it evolved rather constantly over the first 50 years of its existence. It started off as a home and a store. At some point in the late 1880s to early 1890s, it became a hotel. Here's an advertisement for Hotel Hayden, a temperance hotel. It was also advertised as a ladies' hotel. It was later a boarding house. It seems that as years passed, the residence became rather rough and tumble. It seems it was no longer a ladies' hotel. I found articles of residents being involved in fights and all sorts of shenanigans there. This is a photo of the home when it had the second story addition that was used as a boarding house. So that second story addition runs east-west along what is now the Rio Salado wing. The horses over off to the left, that is what is now Mill Avenue. So by 1921, the home is nearly 50 years old, and I just find this humorous. I found an article, there was some improvement completed in 1921, and even then folks were lamenting the loss of the history. The old landmark on First Street known as the Hayden House is fast losing its identity. It's being made over to present a better appearance, yet many of the old timers see in it the passing of the old Tempe. Of course, it was the 1924 Robert Evans restoration work, first historic restoration project in the state. The building was already 50 years old at the time, but became the period of focus for the commission. This is a site plan of the building when it was used as a boarding house. This is circa 1920 or so. In 1924, Robert Evans, an architect, undertook his first project in Arizona, that being the restoration of the Hayden House. Evans went on to design the Eisendrath House, the Old Mission Church in Scottsdale, Jokakian, a number of other adobe buildings. This was a restoration that was not strictly bound to what we know as the Secretary of the Interior standards. There were some conjectural elements added. Spanish colonial revival was very big at the time, and it seems Evans fancied this building as one that should have been Spanish colonial revival in design, at least in terms of some portions, and not strictly a simple Sonoran row house. But this is what it looked like upon the completion of the 1924 work. This is looking to the southwest from what would be the intersection of Mill Avenue and Rio Salado Parkway. So that 1924 work was to enable the building to serve as La Casa Vieja, a restaurant. It served as a restaurant from 1924 through 2014. The Monte family bought the property in 1954. They opened Monte's in 1956. Here's an article documenting that. This is a photo. It said circa 1960. I'm guessing that's fairly accurate. I don't know all that much about dating photos by looking at the vehicles, but that would seem to be about this time. The property is listed in both the Tempe Historic Property Register and the National Register of Historic Places. In fact, I believe Commissioner Garrison was involved in the listing of the property prior to his time as SHPO when he was a consultant. So the restaurant closed on November 17th, 2014, which coincidentally was my first day on the job. I believe that Commissioner Nucci was very wise in terms of choosing a retirement date. But that was my first day. This is an article covering what was to be, unfortunately, redevelopment didn't, unfortunately and fortunately, redevelopment didn't occur as promptly as was planned. There were some questions regarding preservation. There were some issues that the commission dealt with. And as a result of that and other factors, it did sit vacant for an extended period. By 2018, it made the front page of the Tempe Ahwatukee Republic with the headline "Vacant and Vulnerable." So there was a great deal of concern. Shortly thereafter, it came to the commission, and it was decided that, yes, rehabilitation work would need to be completed at the Hayden House prior to being allowed to commence with other portions of the project, the 100 mil project being a planned office building and hotel building. So again, we have the 1924 image here, the period of focus. Reggie McKay of Adobe Technology was brought on by the then owner of the project. This is July 2018. The storage yard to the west of what was the 1968 addition to the building, the first delivery of dirt to be used in manufacture of Adobe blocks for the repair work. That work took more than 2 years. As announced to the commission at the last meeting, the certificate of occupancy was obtained on September 4th of this year. So after having moved through that overview, we now get to the results. Again, this is a 1924, 1925 photo showing the Hayden House immediately following the Robert Evans restoration work. This was the period of focus identified by the HBC for the rehabilitation work. And this is the Hayden House today. As you can see, the shutters, other details, when you compare them to the 1924 photo, Reggie and his crew did a phenomenal job, just first rate. You'll notice that the fire riser cabinet there is something that was not present in 1924. In order to differentiate it, it is required. The infrastructure was already in place in that location. It would have been very costly to move. To differentiate it, we used new exposed Adobe block. So that's what you're seeing there. The parapet in this photo has a much darker color than the whitewashed walls. It is to be painted a lighter color that will still distinguish it as being a modern component. The parapet was actually raised to accommodate the new roof that was put in several years back at this point. So we do want to differentiate the fact that that parapet was not present historically, not in the period of focus. Here's a photo of the front patio. This is, again, circa 1924, 1925. And this is today. You'll notice the door and window placement, the alcove, the light above the alcove, There's, again, Reggie did a phenomenal job in achieving the commission's goal. This is a very iconic photo. One of the Hayden daughters standing in the alcove. The sign reads La Casa Vieja. There's the light fixture above it. This is what we were able to get the alcove area back to. The light fixture, I have to give credit to Harmon Anderson at Pencil Phelps. He very excitedly one day told me that he had found just the right thing, and by gosh, he did. It's just a great piece. So again, 1924, today, and that alcove, the wood in there, that is actually the wood that was put in place in 1924, and it was from that wood that we were able to identify the blue color that was used. We matched it, we're calling it Hayden Blue, but from that and other pieces of wood that date back to 1924, we were able to ascertain the original color used by Evans. You'll notice inside the alcove, whereas in 1924 it led to the courtway, it was open. There was a saguan or river rock walkway. Now, of course, being an office space and being a different time, there is a door in place behind it. This is an image of that door from the inside. You still get the alcove experience. This is a photo of the courtyard again, 1924, 1925. After the Monty family purchased the property, they slowly enclosed the entirety of the courtyard until it was all within the building. And then upon the addition of the 68 and 79 portions to the south, was well within the building. It was known as the fountain room. Here it is when it was part of the building. This is looking toward the northwest there. That is the fountain that you see here in this photo. The cherub was, of course, not in place circa 1924. However, the river rock there was in place. Only the vertical course just below the cherub had been added, presumably to accommodate the cherub and whatever additional fixtures were put on there. The tile was not in place in 1924, so that has been removed. Initially, our agreement with the developer was he would leave this room, the fountain room, unimproved, essentially. It would be space for the city to have to contend with later. This was not within his scope of work. For various reasons, Harmon Anderson and Pencil Phelps did decide to take on this portion of the project, and in doing so, gave us a much improved property, one that is far more usable and one that will not be a future burden to the city in terms of having to identify the funds needed to undertake the rehabilitation work. So Pencil Phelps and Reggie of Adobe Technology began to clear it out. They found that there were actually 3 separate layers of roofing, one roof added on top of another roof, on top of another roof. But today, it is once again an exposed and open courtyard. So this is the work in progress. The cherub has been removed. The vertical course of rock still in place in this photo. But this is not unlike the experience one would have had in 1924. This is a photo of the area on the east side of the courtyard after the application of whitewash. And this is a photo, you can see the fountain in the far bottom right corner there. But again, if you go back to the photo from 1924-25 and compare it to today, again, Reggie and Harmon both did just great work there. You'll notice in this photo that the wall to the right is very thick. That was actually on the east side, that was the south wall of the Hayden House and the north wall of an adobe warehouse. That's why it is thicker than most of the other walls. For those of you who dined at Monty's, you'll recall that along the Mill Avenue section, as you passed from the old house into the 1968 edition, there was a doorway that had plexiglass on either sides through which you could see the adobe blocks. They're actually two separate walls made of adobe. That is the location of that particular wall. We opted to leave the south portion of the doorway exposed as a means of indicating that this is two walls and actually represents two different buildings. There's the possibility down the road of some type of interpretive element there to tell that story. This is the Robert Evans arch from his 1924 work. This is in the Mill Avenue wing. This is not something that would have been found in the house prior. It would have been rather utilitarian. You would have had doorways that essentially aligned that allowed you to pass through the wing, but nothing of this design type. That is the arch today. This is a photo you saw earlier. Mr. Hayden outside the building. You'll notice that some of the gentlemen there behind him or to his right are standing on a river rock walkway or a zaguan. There is a good portion of that remains in the building. This is on the west side of the Mill Avenue wing. So this photo is looking north. That doorway there, the blue door, leads to the courtyard. So just as if you were to follow that walkway at that time, you would have found yourself in the courtyard, not the Robert Evans design courtyard, but the one prior to it. The rock walkway still takes you to the courtyard. The remaining photos, as best as I recall, are elements of the project that were perhaps unanticipated or kind of warrant special attention. The grade, of course, has changed over the years along Mill Avenue. Sidewalks have been built, etc. Here we found, and this was underneath all of the plaster that had been applied over the years, the 3+ inches on the exterior walls. On the Mill Avenue wing of the building, toward the north portion of it, the andesite footers are actually exposed. They were covered by the plaster over the years, but it was determined when removing that the footers were actually visible above grade, and so we left them exposed to help to kind of chronicle the history of the building, its construction, certainly its tie to the Butte. Here's another example of the andesite footers. This is on the east side of the Mill Avenue wing. This is not complete. Harman Anderson and Pencil Phelps had this steel insert fabricated in Colorado. We brought it down. We have a 1/2-inch thick piece of glass that will be installed there. There's also an LED light so that those who are in the building can see the footer and the fact that it is andesite from the Butte, get a sense of how the building was built and the changes in building technology over the years. This is the 1924 Robert Evans Courtyard Gate. This is something, if you look at the 1930 oblique aerial, it remains, aside from the reinforcing bar, very much unchanged. This had a sign on it, as did many things in the building, that said the old wall, 1871. It was only off by 50 years or so. I suppose 1871 made a better story. but this is there, visible in the courtyard. These are just some details. Here we have the headers in a doorway, wood that Charles Hayden brought down from Prescott. Unfortunately, these particular pieces, when the doorway was expanded during the Montes period, were somewhat hacked up, but this is wood that, as best as we could tell, dates to the 1870s. You also notice some char marks on below the headers there. There were several fires from the 1890s through the 1920s, and evidence of those fires is still present and in many cases has been left exposed. You'll see the lath on the arch there to the east side. That is lath put in place in 24 when the arch was built. We also left that exposed. This is a heavily charred piece of wood. This is the area where there would have been where the hostess stand was in place for Montes. This was uncovered, again, left in place. Some beams, unfortunately, were cut during the Monte period, but have been left exposed. This is a fairly typical pattern. You have two larger headers and then inside a smaller beam that is really just a large branch, really not changed, not shaped. On the Rio Salado wing of the building, when it was a boarding house, there were a series of rooms with a door and a window, a wall dividing them. Here, when the drywall and other components were removed, it was discovered that the dividing walls for the rooms were very evident, or at least their placement was very evident. Here, Reggie constructed these two small wall segments in the location of one of the dividing walls to allow occupants to get a sense of what was. Here on the mill lab or the Rio Salado wing, we have a chimney. It seems in place of building a proper chimney, this was simply a passageway for smoke that was carved into the adobe wall. And we have the soot that accumulated over the years. So that's another feature that we left in place. There were, as has been shared with the commission in the past, there were doors and windows discovered behind walls. This is one of those doors that have been covered for many years. It is left in place. This is in the office of what will be the office of Kate Borders, head of the Downtown Tempe Authority, who is the lessee. We also incorporated more modern aspects of the property's history as opposed to allowing them to go to waste. This, some of you may recognize, was actually an exterior door used by Montes. So we put this in place. There's more than one of those in place inside the building. This is the outline of the shed roof in place in the west end of the Rio Salado wing. The profile was quite clear when the plaster and other elements were removed. So it was decided to indicate the presence of that profile as an interpretive feature. Above it, we have a curvilinear parapet there, similar to the Courtyard gate designed by Evans in 1924. This is some of the door hardware. Again, very thorough, very conscientious work on the part of Harmon Anderson and Hensel Phelps, who did a great job in locating period appropriate hardware. As the commission will recall, the doors and windows were custom designed and manufactured by prisoners in Florence. So it allowed prisoners in the wood shop there to hone their woodworking abilities and hopefully gain skills that could be used for productive employment upon their release. This is a photo of the interior. This is there's nothing of particular historic significance here, but I included it to show how the electrical was run in places. We opted against cutting into the adobe, how the duct work was run. Also the ceiling, you may notice that it is actually segments of burlap. And that was done in place of the plastic-like covering that had been proposed, and really, when viewed, did not seem to be in line with the nature of the building. This was done as an alternative, and it was viewed as an homage to the burlap flour sacks that would have been sold by the Hayden flour mill. This is the last component. It is not yet in place. This is the courtyard fence, the rear gate. This is looking to the northeast here. And this is exciting because, as the commission may recall, there were some significant archaeological discoveries made by Logan Simpson on the office property and inside the Hayden House itself. On the office property, the discoveries were both prehistoric and historic. And the prehistoric discoveries were not anticipated, certainly not anticipated to the degree that they were found. So in an attempt to represent the full span of history for this property, not just the history of 1871 to the present, or the time of construction 1873 to the present, it was decided that an artist from the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community would be commissioned to design panels for a gate that reflect the cultural significance and very broad span of history associated with the site. That artist is Jacob Butler, and this is a admittedly poor picture of his design, but he designed panel segments that would represent the Salt River, the Butte, the settlement that was present in that area, and other features of autumn culture. So this is hopefully being fabricated in the very near future, and should be in place, I would hope, within a couple of months here. So that is the 10-cent tour of the Hayden House and what has been done.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate all the pictures.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
really awesome, John. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you to all of you. Without your work, without your involvement, your passion, your advocacy, your assistance, we would not be where we are today. So thank you to every one of you.
Great.
Well, John, do you have any staff updates for us?
I know that this commission had heard numerous presentations from the Urban Core Master Plan team. Those of you who received city emails, today you would have received an email from the city announcing that that plan has been tabled because of a lack of community consensus. So if you do not receive those emails, that is something that would be of interest to the commission. It is hoped that we will begin work in the very near future on the stabilization of the Gonzalez-Martinez house. We have funds available. We've had funds available. We're looking to undertake stabilization work there to ensure that the house is capable of being rehabilitated when a larger scale development of that property occurs in the future. We also are in receipt of a report, a condition report for the Eisendrath House. So that is being reviewed at the moment. There was a test of the historic plaster, overall building condition assessment, looking at doors and windows, really all details. It seems that there's going to be some work that will need to be done there. So that is something that, of course, will come to the commission. I believe that is about it. Next month, I hope to have for the commission our Hayden Butte sign. The commissioners may recall the Gila River Indian community received funding from the Federal Highway Administration in association with the South Mountain project. This funding is to be used to create signage for the various landforms of significance in the valley. Piestro Peak in Phoenix was the first landform. We're very fortunate to be to have the second landform, that is Tempe Butte. The sign is in design and will be placed at the southeast corner of Mill Avenue and Rio Salado Parkway, so a very prominent location that will be associated with a streetcar stop. So a good deal of visibility there. I believe that's it for the presentations. Certainly if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
I just had one on the office for Kate at Hayden House. That door that had been buried within the wall surfaces of Monty's that we discovered when we were peeling back the onion. Mm-hmm. Was that paint color derived from the door itself, or was that a part of the interior design package?
Vice Chair Ball, that is a good question. No, that is not a paint color that is historically associated with that door. And truth be told, that was not planned, but it did occur.
Well, we'll have to get Kate some nice, what was the name of the paint color?
Hayden Blue, yes.
Yeah, we'll have to get her some nice Hayden Blue accents for her office.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, thanks.
Certainly, thank you.
Well, thanks, John. Did anyone have any announcements or anything they wanted to mention?
Nope.
Nope. All right. Well, then we will consider this October 2020 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission adjourned, and it looks like it is about 7:57.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.